folks, we're live, and the studio has been completed for 6 months. We've done a lot of taped interviews in here. Coming up on Thursday, September 1st, we're going to start at 7 o'clock every evening, the Infowars nightly news. But we're also going to be doing a lot of special reports in here, and the studio is going to look different when you see the actual nightly news show. But I still want to continue to do special live reports for PrisonPlanet.tv viewers because there's so much news. The scale and pace of events in the world is only accelerating because of the large world population and the advances of technology. The establishment has actually gotten behind the curve of trying to propagandize people, and worldwide liberty lovers have seized the moment, and we are waking up millions and millions of people every month just with Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. But the millions of other activists across the planet are waking up even more people. And one of those activists out there having a huge effect with his weapon, the truth, is Mike Adams of Natural News. He's going to be with us for the next 45 minutes or so. Then we're going to go to break and come back in studio with another great Texan. And, of course, that is Sheriff Richard Mack to get into the police state and a lot of really important news dealing with Operation Fast and Furious, the White House shipping guns into Mexico to then blame the Second Amendment for the murder and destabilization down there. We'll also get into executive orders dealing with the government being able to seize any U.S. citizens' bank accounts without even a court order and for no reason. Moves to federalize the police and to put U.S. military on the streets of America along with TSA. We'll be discussing all of that in the second half of this hour and a half special transmission via PrisonPlanet.tv this evening. But in the next 45 minutes with Mike Adams, we're going to get into a host of issues. More and more governments are admitting, hey, we've had a huge secret cloning program. We're not just splicing spiders with goats and putting other insect and fish genes in salmon. We're mixing humans with chimpanzees, with jellyfish, you name it. We don't just have glow-in-the-dark cats. We've got glow-in-the-dark people. But because they're part animal, they have no rights, but you can't see them. That's all over the news. Also, they're announcing, hey, we're taking over the food supply. And Monsanto's been told, not under law, but new regulations, you can GMO any crop, including grass, in somebody's yard if you want. And we're not going to let the public know that it's even GMO. Only in America. In fact, one of my crew today saw this article and said, only in America. FDA says walnuts are illegal drugs. And if you think that's a joke, I'm sorry, you have woken up in the Twilight Zone. This is not a joke. They've also, of course, recently SWAT-teamed Amish over raw milk and have SWAT-teamed farms that are growing things like aloe vera, saying that they are drugs. And the real expert on this is another, again, great lover of liberty who now lives right here in Central Texas, right here in Austin, Mike Adams, and he's here in studio with us. We're going to get into some of the issues I mentioned here, Mike, but there's also been moves not to only let them GMO any crop they want, but also to go after minerals, supplements, and other things. And you're here to report on that for us tonight. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Alex. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me on your broadcast. Really cool studio here, by the way. It's almost, where do you want to start? We could talk about the supplements and the freedom issues there. Is that where you want to begin?
Well, let's go through whatever you think's most important. I was just throwing out a few of the items. We've got about 20 or 30 here.
Okay. All right. On the GMO front, let me just start there because it's a quick item. The USDA recently said when Scott's Miracle-Gro attempted to get approval for a genetically modified grass seed that anybody could buy. You could buy it at Home Depot and Lowe's once it comes out, and you could put it on your lawn, or you could put it on a schoolyard, or you could put it, on a playground. And then you could spray all of those plots with Roundup, which is a selective herbicide, and the grass would resist the Roundup. So this is like what they're doing with agriculture. Now they want to do it with your front lawn. The USDA, in response to this petition by Scott's Miracle-Gro, said, we cannot regulate it. We're hands off now. In fact, you go ahead, you basically have full approval, but not really approval. It's just, you can do whatever you want with this grass. Go ahead and make it and sell it and spread it all across the country.
It's a free-for-all.
It's a free-for-all. The USDA said because of a certain language element in the way they regulate GMOs today, which requires a, quote, plant pathogen in order for it to be regulated. But since this GMO didn't contain a plant pathogen, then it's considered offhands by the USDA.
And by pathogen, the corn and things, they've engineered pharmacological pesticides into where the plant grows its own pesticide, and the bugs won't eat it, but humans do. And a lot of farmers notice now their pigs won't eat GMO. Right. Insects won't come on your table and eat it, and we wonder why we're getting so sick.
Yeah. Well, this plant pathogen is a hook, a regulatory hook. This is what allowed the USDA to regulate GMO corn and to regulate alfalfa, which they approved anyway. They were never really going to control it. They were just acting like they were regulating it.
That's because Monsanto and others have literally stacked all the regulatory commissions with their alumni.
Exactly, exactly. But now because of this situation, Scott's Miracle-Gro could put out a GMO grass as early 2012. We could have neighborhoods across the country now putting GMO grass on their front lawns and spraying those lawns with this Roundup herbicide all across the country. And it could be perfectly legal. It could be done on playgrounds, schoolyards, around government offices, buildings, parks, you name it, everywhere.
And from your research and the different patent filings I've seen, basically we've had, what, 8 to 9 of the major food crops being genetically engineered in the last few decades, and the untold horrors and all the studies where in 3 generations with most of these crops, it makes the guinea pigs totally sterile and have tiny genitals and their hair growing in their mouths. Now they're assaulting everything, the herb plants, the grasses, the trees, everything. It's a total global assault on every front, with the trade winds already carrying this everywhere. All sorts of mutagenic plants now.
That's the issue, is genetic contamination. Now with the crops, the genetic contamination was already quite bad, and farmers were having their crops contaminated, their organic crops contaminated, and they were not able to sell them into the organic marketplace because of that contamination. And then Monsanto sued the farmers and said, you're growing our patented seeds without permission, we're going to sue you.
That'd be like if I dumped motor oil in your backyard publicly and then called the cops and said, I dumped motor oil in my cabin's backyard.
Exactly.
Arrest him for stealing my motor oil.
That's just what it's like.
But we wish it was motor oil.
It's even worse, yeah, because motor oil, you could clean that up. There is a remediation strategy for motor oil. There is no remediation for genetic contamination. We are talking an out-of-control genetic invasion, a Pandora's box across the entire planet, now being accelerated by the USDA's refusal to regulate these untested, complete quack science, genetically modified organisms. That's what we're dealing with here, is quack science.
The crazy part, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a million points on this to cover, Mike, but I see articles all the time where these big agri companies go illegally into countries and have research labs and plant their crops right next to the original, true non-GMO crops, and then infect them as well. And I remember seeing in National Geographic a decade ago where a Monsanto executive bragged, yes, we're going to infect everything, and you're not going to have a choice. I mean,
yeah, that's right. They know that if they give you a choice, people will choose non-GMOs. This is what they said about the labeling. Why don't they want to allow the labeling of GMOs in grocery stores so a consumer could have a box of product and they could read on the back label, oh, this contains GMOs. Why don't they want that? Well, a top GMO executive said, you might as well put a skull and crossbones on the box, because if people know there are GMOs in it, they won't buy it. I mean, there is some common sense still left out there. Even though there's the fluoride and even though there's the vaccines and the pharmaceuticals, at some level, people understand that playing God with our seeds and with our food and with our genes is inherently wrong, if not downright evil.
Well, let's just sit back for a moment, because 10, 15 years ago, you couldn't find organic food in most grocery stores. Now, in the last few years, it's been displacing the GMO garbage. And so they've basically changed the regulations in the last few years to where you aren't even told, and the companies don't have to tell you. And then when organic milk companies come out and want to tell people we're GMO and hormone-free, they get sued.
Yes.
So, I mean, this is so diabolical for anybody that's questioning. I want to continue down this line and look at how they're trying to totally legalize a free-for-all,
Yeah.
while at the same time going after mainline vitamins and minerals. And for folks that are in doubt about this, it's already happening in Europe. I mean, I want you as the expert to really break that down for people. But getting into cloning, and we'll cover this more later, but here's the Daily Mail. 150 animal hybrids grown in UK labs. Embryos have been produced secretly. Well, it's not really secret. We've now discovered this has been going on since at least 1965.
Yeah.
And all the genetic engineers I've talked to, including people that have worked at these companies, say this is already giving rise to super viruses. This is the reason you're having so many weird illnesses and cancer and diabetes. We are being poisoned. And then I read the Rockefeller Foundation documents, and I've got some articles here where the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation have basically teamed up with them, and they're going into Africa saying, if you want your IMF and World Bank money, you've got to accept vaccines, you've got to accept GMOs. And then you read the public documents of the Rockefeller Foundation, they admit, hey, here's our patent for a vaccine that really sterilizes you. Here's our patent for this rice that really sterilizes you. And then it's the very rice they're pushing on them. So of course they're not letting us label it and know. This is about, in every mammal species, being completely barren within 3 generations. Now that's less than a year with guinea pigs, but with humans, we're talking 60 years, but we're already a generation into it, and we see fertility plummeting. I mean, this is so diabolical.
You're right, and the reaction to this won't be evident in the human species until perhaps another generation or 2 down the road, when I expect to see mass infertility. They are already killing the future of the human race right now. It's just that people don't know it yet because the infertility hasn't exactly kicked in. Keep in mind that a female baby inside her mother's womb, all right, she is born with all the eggs that she's going to have in her entire lifetime. So there is a 2-generation effect. So the women today in their 20s, let's say, who are having babies, their eggs were formed when they were in their mother's womb, when the mother was growing up, back before a lot of this GMOs and poison was out there. So what we're seeing today is basically eggs that were created before the mass poisoning of the planet. But this is the last generation of that. Now, the GMOs have kicked in. The mass pharmaceutical poisoning of pregnant women has kicked in. The vaccines have been spreading like crazy, and they're pushing more and more. Today, the women who are getting pregnant, when they form a little girl inside their bodies, and the eggs that are in that baby girl, those eggs are largely infertile. It's just not evident yet.
By the way, for viewers out there, Mike, I lose sleep over this. I can be exhausted at 1 a.m. and I'll go shoot YouTube videos talking about this because Aaron Dykes and the rest of my crew, all we do is read their own publications.
Yeah.
And they sit back, admit they're doing this. Bill Gates even goes on TED TV and says, hey, we've got to do this to reduce world population.
Yeah.
They don't even veil it.
Yeah.
You see the headline, Bill Gates, Ted Turner, British royalty, Oprah Winfrey, meet in secret at Rockefeller University to discuss world government and population reduction. And you just said it. With the old vaccines and the pesticides and the toxins, we've seen a massive increase in infertility in women 20, 30, 40 years old. We've seen an 87% sperm count drop in Western Europe and the United States. Right. We see in all the countries where the BT corn is grown, on average, about half the honeybees dead. In some areas, even more. We are seeing literal mass murder against the biosphere run by the very fake environmentalists that preach at us as a joke about carbon dioxide that plants live off of, part of the life cycle. And I get chills talking about this because I have to look at these literal control freaks carrying out a slickly packaged proto-Nazi, because this system in England and the U.S. what created the Nazis. They were just a spinoff that moved too quickly, in their words, and only targeted certain groups. And they've gone out and gotten the intelligentsia and sold this idea, and so they're putting these Trojan horses, just like they admit they now put Trojan horses in all the iPhones and all the computers to track us. They've put the Trojan horse, these traits, And this is the end of humankind.
Yeah,
This is the, and of course, the controllers, they all have the reversal systems. They've all got the technologies to reverse it for themselves, and they avoid all this stuff like the plague, and then they force it on us and don't let us label it. This is genocide against humanity. This is a soft kill, and these people are murderers.
The timeline, we are already too late on many of these issues, Alex. We're already too late. You're raising the alarm, I'm raising the alarm, some people are paying attention, but this issue is new to many people, and yet it's already too late because there are little girls walking around today, 8, 9, 10 years old, who are going to try to have children in another decade or two. They won't be able to because it's already too late for them. There is genetic contamination now due to the GMOs that's spreading across the planet. It's already too late. You can't put that back in the box.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Studying genetics, it's well known that when you mate a horse and a zebra, or a horse and a donkey, and you get a mule, the chimera, and those are natural chimeras, are sterile. And I was just reading studies this morning. That's why the GMO makes all the creatures it comes in contact with go sterile, is because it is muted. It is causing a mutation within your body. I mean, these people.
That's right.
You got to admit, this was cold-blooded and calculated. And listen, people are going to be watching. That's why they've got to have a police state in place right now.
Of course.
Because folks are going to get so mad about this. People are going to be watching this underground in 10 years. We'll probably be locked up in prison.
Yeah, probably.
I'm serious.
Well, we're facing the same firing squad.
If we don't turn this around. But I think, folks, as a message of the future, they won't listen now. But 10 years from now, they're going to know why it's almost complete sterility.
And why we're all eating Soylent Green at that time. And
please continue, though, because what you're breaking down is the heart of everything.
Keep in mind, let's get back to the patent that you mentioned earlier, patents. You see, these companies, whether they're drug companies or labs playing God with human chimpanzee hybrid fetuses, or whether they're agriculture companies, they don't care what they sell, Alex. If they can grow it and own it and enforce the patent and have a monopoly and sell it, they don't care what it is. Right now, they've found out a way to monopolize and grow GMO corn. If they can grow GMO human body parts, they will, and they are.
They admit they've been doing it for decades now, quietly. Now they're unveiling it because now it's ready for marketability, but that's the issue. They also, and they admit this, they sterilize most of the public, but then they've got the genetic treatments to turn it back on. They say, oh, we can take your husband and your wife's cells, we'll splice it for you and make you a baby, but now, if you're going to get this under the global insurance, we've got to make sure that this person has the traits we say, not just cutting out, quote, cancer, but also aggressive behavior.
Well, remember, as of right now, at least 20% of the human genome is patented and owned by corporations and universities and scientists.
So they're not just taking over the crops genetics, they're taking over a corporate takeover of humans.
Right, and they own the patents right now. You can check the U.S. Patent Office. You know, we're not making this up. It's going to get to a point where if you want to reproduce and have a non-mutant child, you're going to have to pay a royalty. Just like the farmers do to Monsanto and DuPont for the seeds year after year, because the seeds have a Terminator gene in them. The mass population is being contaminated with Terminator genes through all the genetic mutation in the food supply,
and this is on record,
and the drugs.
And then they will create the institutions that represent the mutants and the groups that represent the people who have the right to bioengineer and transhuman.
That's right.
And then they will manage all of that and play people off against each other.
We're going to have genetic class warfare system, you know, genetic classes.
So they're actually invoking eugenics. They're building the world they want, and then they're going to blame carbon dioxide that's part of the life cycle and other things. That's why this is happening. Then they'll take more rights in the name of stopping the very scourge they created. You go back to the 20s, the Rockefellers figured out that most cancer was viral.
Yeah.
Then by the 30s, they roll out the vaccines.
With SV40.
And then in the 40s and 50s, which the government admits over 100 million people total died from cancers contracted by SV40, and it's only beginning. Their mass murder is only beginning.
That's right.
And then you've got a mesmerized drug. People ask, why don't Americans get mad? We are the test bed for the rest of the world. I mean, I saw the article in Natural News. We're in Hungary. Tell folks what they're doing in Hungary.
Which article was that?
The story where they're destroying all the GMO secret fields.
Yeah, Hungary outlawed GMOs. And some farmer was caught growing GMO corn in Hungary. And the government actually came in and brought in a crew and destroyed the crops. And they said, we're going to protect genetic integrity in our country and not allow this contamination. You know, good for Hungary. Because, you know, Hungary wants to have a food supply, wants to have agricultural integrity in another generation, where the U.S., which has just basically given in to the GMO industry, the U.S. is going to be dealing with mass starvation, mass mutant crops, crop failures. We have
all the bees dying.
The bees dying, about a third a year. 33% of the bee population is dying every year. Year after year after year. I mean, it doesn't take too many years before you're down to 2 or 3% of what it used to be.
And the Germans looked in their guts and found a major link to the BP toxin, because bees are like humans. Other plants and animals won't eat this stuff, but bees will still go ahead and get the pollen.
Yeah, that's right. There are multiple factors, I believe, involved in the honeybee collapse. Yeah. We've got cell phone towers. We've got genetically modified crops. We've got chemical pesticides and a possible chemtrail link as well with the
we know the aluminum levels going off the chart. And the old timers 15 years ago, now 16, went up and did tests and said they're spraying barium salts, aluminum dioxide, and we don't know why.
Right.
And then 2 years ago, first speech the science czar gives, Holdren, he says, yes, there's been a 15-year secret program. This Nobel Prize winner developed it, a plan to save you from global warming. But the studies actually show it makes it heat up. We are spraying aluminum dioxide. This is exactly what the conspiracy theorists said. But here's a pop culture example. In the movie The Thing, not just the original 50s, but the remake with Kurt Russell, great horror film. They dig up this creature. It's a shapeshifter. It's a genetic creature that can copy anything at once. And it basically comes to planets to absorb and copy and replicate, and then the entire biosphere is basically replicas of itself. And they estimate with their computer that if it gets out of Antarctica, that within just a couple hundred days, the entire world will be infected. So basically, the science officer decides he's got to kill everybody.
Right.
And that's what the elite did. And you got to admit, they're smart. You go back to the British royalty 150 years ago. This is on record. They said to Galton and others, the eugenicists, they said, we've got to find out what makes life tick. We've got to patent it, and we've got to take over. And then 100 years ago, they were talking about genetic engineering and all this, and the island of Dr. Moreau.
Yeah.
And then about 65 years ago, even decades before they discovered it, they guessed it would be DNA. They figured it out. The Cold Springs Harbor Eugenics Laboratory developed it, which is eugenics, and now they've paid for it with tax money, and now they're not using it to empower humanity. They're using it to take everything over. Please continue. I mean, the problem is, Mike, you bring this up, and it's just you want to pull your hair out.
Yeah, well, it's almost like this interview, you should put it on a DVD and lock it in a vault somewhere or bury it underground, because it's possible, Alex, here's a scenario, that 50 years from now, as the human race collapses, people won't even know why. All they will know is that they can't have babies, the food is gone, the pollinators are gone, and people won't know why, because they were never told the truth.
It's Children of Men. Did you see that movie?
Children of Men.
They're throwing it in our face in movies like that.
Of course they are. There was another movie, The Island. Remember The Island, where they grew clone bodies in a separate containment living space?
And it turns out they're doing exactly that, but they grow it in utero in a cow, and then reportedly, won't tell you what else they do, but the report is they actually are keeping these clones alive.
Absolutely they are. Yeah. But it's gotten to the point, Alex, where sometimes I wake up and I think I need to.
These are humans, though. Well, what about their rights? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, once they're not humans, right? Once they mix in other animal genes, they have no rights.
That's what they're saying.
That's how they get around the human rights. They can make a 99.5% human. Remember, there's only about a 1 or 2% difference between a human and a chimpanzee. So they can make a 99.5% human and 0.5% jellyfish, and they can say that's not human. So therefore it has no rights, and we can grow them and we can harvest their organs for transplant surgeries into other humans.
And then they sell it to the public, and Ray Kurzweil does. It's inevitable, give into it, don't have a debate about the future of this. And literally you'll have to go to them to reproduce, and that's their plan. And then that's where the licensing comes in, and they say it's your guilt for the toxic waste that did this. You go back to the Industrial Revolution, that didn't affect fertility, and there were real toxins and problems. This is something beyond that. Now, Mike, continue. At the same time, There are a lot of vitamins, nutrients, minerals that have been proven to not 100% protect you, but shield you from a lot of this.
Right. This is the real link. Okay, we haven't even talked about this even on your show or even on national news yet. The real key here is that nutritional supplements, the good ones, the really high-end superfoods, they prevent DNA mutations. They create and activate chromosome repair. All right? The right nutrients can help you repair your DNA. So the FDA, through its new NDI regulations that it's proposing, the new dietary ingredient regulations, it wants to take all of these away. So at the same time that all these DNA mutations are coming in from Fukushima radiation fallout, from the vaccines, from the pharmaceuticals, from the GMO contamination, they're taking away all the supplements that can repair DNA.
By the way, they did that in Europe, and in last year's Food Safety Act that Big Pharma and Big Agri pushed, it said this law implements Codex Alimentarius.
Yes, yeah, that's a law. That's done and over with. You know, it's after the fact. Alex, we are so far after the fact, and people watching or listening won't even believe it. They think this hasn't happened yet.
Jack McClam's coming up. Not Jack McClam, another great patriot. Sheriff Richard Mack's coming up later.
Yeah.
And I actually have the new executive order in place that talks about Los Zetas and Al-Qaeda. Then later it says, any American, for any reason, anytime we want, we can lock you up, take your bank account, executive order, and he declares a civil emergency. We're under martial law.
Of course.
Please continue.
Well, the supplements could be taken away from us by the end of this year. All right, the FDA regulations are now in a 90-day comment period that began July 1st. They started it right before the July 4th weekend in order to, get some time under the rug. If we don't beat this deal, and if we don't get the rights back for our nutritional supplements, then literally those health food stores could be wiped out. All of these products could be off the shelves by the end of this year.
Say that again.
I mean, okay.
And by the way, all over the country, they're saying you can't have your own garden. You got to have a license because you might be growing marijuana. All over the country, they're raiding people selling peaches on the side of the road. Amish selling milk to their neighbors. So don't say we have government health care now. Don't say, oh, Obama can't launch a war without congressional approval. Don't say the foreign banks won't rob us. Don't say that, that the dollar won't go down. It's all happening. It's all planned. So don't live in denial. This is happening now. Please continue.
They have synchronized the assault on our foods and our freedoms.
It's a program.
It's absolutely a planned strategy. Why do they go after Julie Bass? Why are they going after the Amish? Why do they go after the food supply with the food safety bill at the same time that now they want to take away the nutritional supplements, at the same time that they're about to launch another new vaccine scare campaign with Hollywood movie coming out in another month, the big fall vaccine time period, at the same time that the USDA says we're not going to regulate GMOs? It's all happening at once.
This is modern 21st century warfare. It's corporate. It's scientific. It's packaged slickly. It's creeping death. It's in the plastic bottles, the bisphenol A. It's in the air. It's in the vaccines. It's invisible. It's hidden. This is the total full spectrum eugenics global extermination program. We are in the deep throes of it. And now with the carbon tax, they've attempted to shut off more than half the energy of the third world. They told the third world, hey, we're going to tax America and Europe and give you tax money for development. They get the treaty, and it's right at double the taxes on them there'd be on us. I mean, and they figured out in 10 years it would have killed more than 1 billion people who are living on less than $2 a day. And I've got reports today in the Boston Herald that they're seeing malnutrition now all over the United States because the poor children...
Starvation in the emergency rooms. Yeah, doctors are seeing that now more than ever before. There are African-American babies being born in Boston hospitals now who are born with rickets, all right, which is a chronic vitamin D deficiency of the mother. There are mothers being given chemotherapy so that their babies are born with genetic mutations and long-term infertility. This is happening right now. It is a crime against humanity. It's a multitude of crimes.
And it's a battle plan.
It's a war against the human genetic integrity.
It's the eugenics wars.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah, I mean, we're seeing it now. It's not a theory. It's not a conspiracy. It's not even something that we're warning people down about 10 years down the road. This is happening right now, today. But, Alex, there will be survivors of this. There are ways to protect
yourself. And that's why the GMO companies, that's why they're passing laws to be able to have private mercenaries. They're building armored keeps. they understand that people are going to be angry at them, and people that are angry for their mother, their daughter, their father being made barren, being killed, they're going to be called terrorists.
But isn't it interesting that even all the mercs and all the enforcers, they're going to be infertile too? It's just like you say on your show a lot. All the people in enforcing the global elite agenda, they're next in line to be cold. They're not immune from the agenda.
Well, that's why people ask me, they say, because, you know, I've been attacked and a lot of things have happened. I don't get into it over the years. People say, aren't you scared of being killed? Or are you even afraid of them coming after your family? And I love life. I love my children more than anything. But at the end of the day, they have no future if we don't beat them. Folks don't get it. This isn't something you just, decide, am I going to face this down? Am I going to fight this? We are living in a science fiction nightmare, and only fully awakening to this assault is going to give us any chance of resisting. I mean, this is like Hitler going into Russia in Barbarossa. He's not going to stop. You're going to have to face him.
That's right. We're fighting for the future of the human race. That's literally what we are fighting for.
And that's when humanity wins, is when you realize there is no cowering down to this. You're fight or you die.
That's it. We got to get into more guerrilla gardening, Alex. I mean, the terminology sounds almost funny, but it's serious. We need guerrilla gardening. We need people growing their own food that's not GMO.
Saving the heirlooms.
Saving the seeds.
Hiding them, because they're also getting into moves worldwide to start confiscating them.
They could start confiscating seeds.
Oh, no, they're already buying up the heirlooms, Monsanto and others, and then now coming out and saying you can't replant those either. We've now put a patent on our brand name.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, this is going on.
What's a total takeover?
DuPont and Monsanto are buying up all the seed companies, not just in North America, but globally. Over 100 acquisitions between those two companies in the last
and building armored seed vaults.
Yes. Yeah, because they know what's valuable. It's the seeds. It's not. This all comes down to the seeds, Alex. The seeds in humans, which are our genetic code, our sperm and our ovaries. All right, these are the seeds of the future of the human race.
And this is our ancestors going back millions of years. I mean, this is the total code of people that struggled and fought and died to be here.
If you cannot protect the integrity of your DNA as a species, then you are extinct, period. And that is what we are facing right now. So they want to control the seeds of plants and the seeds of humans. And they want to patent plants and patent humans or variations of humans. They've already tried to patent, well, successfully patented animals. Some of that was struck down by the U.S. Supreme Court, but not all of it, and certainly not globally. And then there are other tactics that they use to try to patent various processing.
You know what's shameful?
Seeds and plants.
America, the United States, is the main driver of this, and it's because we've been seized by the technocrats. And a lot of the world, farmers in France, if GMO gets planted, they just go burn it. And the police go, absolutely, good job. And all I'm saying is people need to start getting really focused on this.
If they don't, they're going to lose their future. I mean, I'm talking about complete extinction of many lines of genetics throughout the human race. That's what's happening. I mean, I've said this before. It's the genopocalypse. It is the apocalypse of the human genome. It's upon us, Alex. In another generation, it will be obvious to everyone. Right now, it's not, which is why what we are saying right here, a lot of people say, no, it couldn't be true.
It's all admitted. I mean, they really have written hundreds of books admitting they did it. And here's the issue. Just like they started militarizing police and setting up threat fusion centers when they got rid of Glass-Steagall, knowing it was designed to implode the country, and we're ready to have Northcom on the streets by this year, years before. This is all strategic, mapped up in long-term plans.
Yeah.
They keep us on like a quarterly system while they're on 10, 20, 30, 40-year plans that Zbigniew Brzezinski talks about. And now, Mike, they have to have their police state grid in place when folks find out about this.
Right, because awareness will lead to instant riots, instant revolts. If people knew what was going on with the Federal Reserve right now, there'd be riots in the streets. They know that. It's only the ignorance that keeps many mainstreamers in their seats. Now, I wouldn't be joining the riot. We're already past that stage. We're at home safe, hunkered down, surviving and planting seeds and trying to create peace and freedom and liberty and free commerce and safe transportation in our local communities. That's the kind of thing that I think you and I would both be doing. Not not out just going crazy, shooting people. That's what the masses will do because they freak out, because they're uninformed. They did not get informed, and so they're afraid. You know, that.
I'll tell you, and we've only got about 15 minutes left, and we've got to have you back in here for the news show that starts September 1st, and also for more of these special reports. If you're watching, this is a special report, part one of it, here with Mike Adams, and time has just flown by so fast. But I was invited to a birthday party, I don't know, almost a year ago now, to a small town outside Austin. And everyone I ran into there in the town was a listener. But then at the house I was at, some of the folks were listeners, but some of the doctors and people that were there didn't even know who I was. But they said, "Oh, you don't know? People have all moved to this town because we know about the population reduction plan. We know about the GMO Armageddon. Smart people could see it, and they've all moved out there. They're, quote, doomsteads with their wives and children,
right.
Many of them without ever hearing me. And then I was on the other side of the coin with some doctors and geneticists and people at a party I got invited to, and none of them knew who I was. And they said, well, how do you keep from just going dark knowing this info? They started bringing it up to me, didn't know who I was,
really?
And were kind of very sad about the fact that this was being done. So the good news is, Mike, people are finally starting to get this in the intelligentsia. A lot of them got it a long time ago.
Yeah.
The problem is they are at their emergency doomsteads instead of having your redoubt, but also going out and warning people.
Sure. Yeah, I believe in that. Obviously, that's why I'm here. You and I are all about spreading the information so that people are informed, because we believe that information prevents the fear. If people have knowledge, then they don't panic. We are about helping people be prepared.
And we can start reversing this.
Yes.
Telling somebody don't walk off into that cliff, you're going to fall 1,000 feet and die. That's not fear. It's, hey, there's a cliff right there.
No,
it's like at a subway, mind the gap.
Exactly. No, these people in Washington, they want the public to drive with their headlights off so they don't see something in the road. You and I would be, no, put your headlights on. Maybe even wear a seatbelt. It's just common sense in case something happens. It's preparedness. I mean, do these people who attack us, do they go out there and drive their cars down the highway at 70 miles an hour and not wear their seatbelts? Do they disable their airbags because they don't want to be negative about things? I mean, is that their mindset? It's insane. By the way, I just want to point out, with what we've talked about so far, you notice we haven't even turned a page over. We're still on page 1.
Yeah, no, look at this.
We have a whole stack of stuff to get into. This is just scratching the surface.
So tell us the time frame. They're coming out and saying, you know what? GMO, whatever you want now. It's a brave new world. But by the way, you're not going to have Melaleuca plants. You're not going to have aloe vera plants, walnuts. And when I saw this in this article, Life Extension Magazine today, I believed it, but I went and looked it up.
Yeah.
And sure enough, the FDA, well, I mean, I know you know about it, is saying that they are not generally recognized as safe and effective. And so there's a move to start not letting people have walnuts.
That article, I believe, is from quite a few months back, actually, and it's about Blue Diamond.
Yeah.
And Blue Diamond made some health claims about their walnuts that were fully supported by government-funded scientific studies published in peer-reviewed medical journals. And it just said things like, if you eat walnuts, it reduces the risk of heart disease, which is absolutely true. The FDA, like they always do, they said by making that statement, you magically transform walnuts into unapproved drugs. Now you're selling unapproved drugs.
But everybody knows, get folic acid for a woman who's pregnant, eat spinach. I mean, we're supposed to eat food. It's like a baby gets milk and they say, no, you want corn syrup formula.
No, Alex, the FDA says that there is no such thing as a food that has any health benefit whatsoever in the human body. Foods are nothing but dead calories to the FDA. If you even say that vitamin C from an orange, that eating an orange can prevent scurvy or Lyme, as the sailors found out hundreds of years ago, then in the FDA's eyes, you are a criminal. You can have, if you sell vitamin C and you make that claim, you can have your products confiscated. You can be prosecuted by the FDA's Criminal Investigation Department, which is very vicious and has put people on Interpol.
And as you know, the big organic food alliances and the vitamin alliances, what a decade ago said, okay, the FDA says be friends, work with them. They want to bring us into the fold. And now they found out they're coming in and just shutting everything down.
It was a total betrayal.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, this new effort by the FDA to potentially ban tens of thousands of products, health products, dietary supplements across the board, by the end of this year, it could really kick in. This effort is based on a reinterpretation of language from the 1994 law, DSHEA, that was all about that. Let's play ball with the FDA and we'll be okay. Well, Bill Falloon right there from Life Extension is on the record now saying, we know that we have to fight this or we are all going to be potentially put out of business.
And that's when we start winning. When you realize these are enemies, these are control freaks, these are eugenicists, murderers. The low-level minions are compartmentalized, but at the top, Aaron's done deep research. You're talking about less than 100 people on all these boards and these corporate boards, and then you find out they all make statements about too many people and getting rid of the population. It is a tiny eugenics cult in control of the major Fortune 100 and the central banks.
Yeah.
And literally, and I risk my life saying this, but if we could just have these people through law investigated and arrested, we would still have problems, but many of our problems would literally reverse. I mean, I go back to the Hitler analogy. World War II was finally over when they, when they overtook his bunker. When they finally, Japanese, finally when they were defeated, World War II was over. And I mean, these people are enemies. And we need to start recognizing they're murdering enemies. And I'm willing, for them to do whatever they do to me. I'm going to call them out. They're murdering criminals who have to be dealt with.
You are exactly right, and you are putting your life at risk by saying what you say and doing what you do every day on the radio. I'm putting my life at risk.
But there is no future.
Exactly.
There's no future if we don't beat them.
What's the point of being here if we don't stand up against this? And this guy is a great American hero, Bill Falloon. I don't know if you can get a shot of Bill here. Bill Falloon from Life Extension Foundation. He's the one who stood up against the FDA in 1994 with DSHEA, and he's the one now who is also going to help with this effort to protect access to our supplements. This is a great American liberty-loving individual right here, much like Ron Paul, much like many others throughout American history. And we all have to stand up, or it's over.
And the minute we decide that these people are the murdering criminals that they are the sick fascist takeover freaks, the minute we realize they want to socialize our wealth so they can control us, the minute we realize that, we start winning. We've only got about 10 minutes left, and then we're going to end up going 2 hours tonight, folks. We got Jack. I'll keep calling him Jack McClams, another great patriot. Or I might call him Stuart Rhodes. No. He's the guy that beat the Supreme Court, who beat the gun grabbers. Of course, Sheriff Richard Mack was on the show with me for an hour and a half today, and he's going to be talking about Oath Keepers and all the other great groups that are waking up the enforcers who are under attack. So Sheriff Richard Mack is coming up. We're live streaming at prisonplanet.tv. We're going to be doing more and more of these special reports here in the future, but also a weeknight produced 30-minute hard-hitting show. And so again, I want to thank all of you for joining us tonight. But this assault on humanity, these people are such control freaks. They admit, yes, we're ending humanity. We're remaking it. We're upgrading it. And resistance is futile. You don't have a choice in this. Go along with it. And then they have people like Kurzweil repeating that, and then they have their minions going, good, I want to live forever. You're not going to be given that. You're being killed. They're selling you on rewriting everything, destroying the genetic code of the planet while they play God.
But let me give you the positive side of this.
Yes.
As individuals who listen to the Alex Jones Show, who pay attention to what we're talking about, individuals can choose to survive. All right? Individuals can choose to be part of the future of the human race by growing their own food, by avoiding the toxic chemicals.
That's the revolution.
That's exactly it.
And I don't even do, because I work so much, what I say I know we should do. And people shouldn't think, oh, I'm too far gone to do this. You can change it. You can at least do it for your children. Go ahead.
Well, it's just that we can make a choice. If you love life and if you love the future of humanity on this planet, because it's a great planet, I don't know of a better one out there. We can choose to be part of the future of the human race, even though others are not awakened and even though it might be too late for them. And that is a choice that we can make every day by deciding what we want to do with our lives and how we want to protect our genetic code. It's key to protect the integrity of our own DNA. And you can do that by avoiding the vaccines and avoiding the GMOs and avoiding the synthetic chemicals that they put into every personal care product out there. Perfumes and colognes have an average of 20 cancer-causing chemicals in them, and they don't have to be labeled because the FDA says that we just don't require it to be labeled because it's a corporate secret. You know, the formulation of the perfume is a trade secret.
Poison is legal, food is illegal.
That's exactly it. It's that insane. You know, how criminal is this to say you can't grow your food, but we're going to put poison in your body?
And you can't find out what's in that vaccine. It's a trade secret. Right. And then you learn they're spiking it with hormones that become recognized as a pathogen because they're added with the pathogen. You find out there's genetically engineered cancer viruses, and they found even if it's made at 50 different manufacturers in separate manufacturing processes, it's come out that they're adding it. It's not an accident. I mean, these are cold-blooded killers.
Yes, yes. But let me bring it back to the superfoods. Even if you don't have a perfectly healthy lifestyle, and I don't either. I don't have a perfectly healthy lifestyle either. Whatever you are doing out there today, watching this, listening to this, if you take some superfoods like Interfood, one of your sponsors, if you take that every day, that will protect so much of your genetics. Even if you still eat pizza or smoke a cigarette from time to time or get some radiation from the airport scanners, if you do the superfoods, you have a much better chance of being part of the future of the human race. It's that important. And I drink 3 or 4 superfood shakes every day for that reason.
Tell folks about your own journey from being super unhealthy to where you are today.
Well, I was raised on a standard American diet, right? I was borderline obese, diabetic, chronic pain, high cholesterol, eating just fast food, junk food, taking pharmaceuticals. I got vaccinated in the past. I was just regular every day. And I turned that around starting about 10 years ago and just literally transformed my health through food and through learning, education, and sharing that information with others. And just, you know, today I grow my own food. I have a John Deere tractor. I farm. I eat my own tomatoes. I raise chickens. I eat their eggs.
Sounds pretty Al-Qaeda.
I mean, yeah, I'm a guerrilla gardener, you know, and I hang out with organic farmers, and I'm into growing as much of my own food because I don't trust anything else out there. You know, I want to survive.
You are an extremist.
Well, apparently. Yeah.
Mike,
yeah.
tell us what's new at naturalnews.com. What's the Health Ranger doing right now? Trying to defeat what? A, the total genetic takeover that's been announced, and B, their counterattack against our ammo, the supplements?
We are about to launch a rally point website. It's going to be called protectoursupplements.org. It's not up as of this moment, but in a couple of days it will be. It's a nonprofit, totally non-commercial rally point. We will be linking to every story, every interview. We'll be linking to you when you cover this topic. We'll be linking to petitions. It will be a place for people to come and take action. And then there's going to be a massive call-in day on September 8th to call your representatives in Congress. That is, if the government isn't completely financially gone by September 8th. There's a call-in day. We'll be helping to organize that. We're working with other leaders in the industry, including Bill Falloon. He has a new book coming out. I don't want to give the title away, but we're interviewing him and publicizing that as part of this effort. We are part of an all-out rebellion against the FDA's assault on our freedoms and our health, Alex.
And what I like about Oak Park, Michigan is suddenly all her neighbors are planting gardens in their front yard.
Isn't it awesome?
They crushed this woman, try to put her in jail for 90-plus days, harass her, do all this to her, and now there's a rebellion all over the country. And it is beginning that garden, beginning to stop drinking the fluoridated tap water and all the poisons. It starts with becoming aware of the enemy, yes, and then slowly realizing that they've built an artificial habitat to literally re-engineer us, is what the elite call the final revolution. And the fact that you're saying every time we go jogging, every time we don't pull into McDonald's, you know, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. Every time we do that, we defeat these people.
Yes. And you don't have to be perfect about it. You don't have to be some Adonis in the gym and eating nothing but living juice every hour of the day. You don't have to do that to be healthy and to survive. You just have to eliminate most of the poisons and strengthen your system with the superfoods every day. I drink superfoods every day, and I highly encourage that. And by the way, you know, I keep recommending Interfood because they're your sponsor, but there are also many other superfoods out there to choose from that are very good. Interfood's fantastic.
Mention some others.
Well, Boku Superfood, Living Fuel is really great. Pure Synergy is really great. Health Force Nutritionals makes a product called Vitamineral Green that is one of the most potent. I drink that every day too. There's a Rejuvenate Pro product out there. I mean, I'm just mentioning some of the ones that I know of that are in my cabinet. You know, these are the things I drink. And they can protect you.
No, I know you've been here a lot during the day, and you don't really bring food. You bring, these superfoods and some cashews. Yeah. And you and your wife, certainly you can tell you're glowing. Me, I got black circles around my eyes, and I'm not running around trying to eat GMO, but it's just in everything. When you go out to eat whatever.
No, if I could say, you put so many hours into what you do because you're so passionate about it. You sacrifice your time for the benefit of the viewers and the listeners out there because you feel so strongly about this information.
Well, they could also imprison me or shut me down anytime.
But I know
and
how
so
hard
I've got to
work.
say as much as I can now.
The stress of the work that you do and that I do, and you work harder than I do, and there's not many people who do that, by the way. The stress it gets to us. If we don't take time out, man, it adds up. Because we feel like so strongly this rebellion, this liberty march is so crucial that we tend to sacrifice our own health in order to help the other people out there. And I see you doing that constantly, being very effective, but putting in so many hours. I can't even imagine how you get it done, Alex.
Well, the dozens of countries are creating thousands of transhuman and half-animal clones. I mean, we've got to put in that effort to shake people out of the trance, the television, and the rest of it is put them into. We're going to go to a couple different little pieces of my films, Police State 4, Endgame, and, of course, the Obama deception. These are trailers for the film that folks, really don't often see since the films themselves are out. But we're going to play a couple of these, come back with Sheriff Richard Mack to get into the physical control grid that they're trying to put in, and some huge police state developments. Mike Adams, I really want to thank you for joining us. Mike Adams,
my pleasure, Alex.
With Natural
Good
News.
To be here.
You bet. And I look forward to having you pop in via Skype, but also in studio on the nightly news show.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I'm out of town or something, we can work you to death and have you come in here and do the show. Because you do a great job on the radio when you fill in. And my websites, of course, are Infowars.com. and PrisonPlanet.com, and I hope you'll spread the word about that. We also did a special report this week that's on the YouTube channel that really needs to go viral. It has gone viral, but super viral, and that's titled Genetic Armageddon, Humanity's Greatest Threat. Please get that special 15-minute report out on the transhuman cloning and the rest of it. And Sheriff Richard Mack, who's launching a big offensive against the globalist, is coming up. We'll be right back in a few minutes. Stay with us. Thanks, Mike.
Architecture of government is, and it's not in a president.
Wall Street has hijacked Washington in broad daylight.
Well, Obama's already fudging. He's fudged since day one in this election.
The elite are using Obama to pacify the public so they can usher in the North American Union by stealth, launch a new Cold War, and continue the occupation of Iraq and Afghanistan.
The globalists are outside all the nations. That gives them safety, and they play countries off against each other.
We've got to give them a stake in creating the kind of world order that I think all of us would like to see.
Partnership and cooperation among nations is not a choice. It is the only way.
What they're doing is using the existence of the United States to act out their Wall Street fantasies of world domination and maintaining their capital structures and maintaining their system of looting.
The fight that this country has been waging since its inception is for the central bankers not to take over the country.
President Barack Obama is only the tool of a larger agenda.
Senator Obama had a desire to do some meetings. Others had a desire to meet with him tonight in a private way, and that's what we're doing.
Presidential candidate Barack Obama was publicly criticizing the North American Free Trade Agreement in a bid for votes, but privately telling Canadian officials not to worry about it.
If you talk to our generals, they are desperate for is a civilian counterpart to our military force.
what do you call this thing where you get this false sense of gratification, but because a black man is in office, everything's gonna be all right. No, everything's not gonna be all right.
So I know how unpopular it is to be seen as helping banks right now, especially when everyone is suffering in part from their bad decisions. I promise you, I get it.
The Obama deception. The truth strikes back. Get your copy of The Obama Deception today at Infowars.com or download it in super high quality at prisonplanet.tv.
Declare this to be an unlawful assembly.
Chaos is hanging around. Shudder from the sound. The death machine ain't slowing down. It's gaining pound for pound. A gas mask is the couture in the summer of rage. They're building mass graves within the states. You and I, they'll vaccinate. They're preparing us for an all-out police state.
Finding all Infowars. Republic is falling right
now. World leaders arriving in Pittsburgh.
It is a big idea, a new world order.
In the near future, Earth is dominated by a powerful world government.
It's known as the Bilderberg Group. Could their objective be world domination?
For thousands of years, their dark order grew. Now, as they hail the birth of the New World Order, their great dream of exterminating 80% of humanity is at hand. For the first time in history, the elite's plan for world government is blown wide open. You will learn the secret that drives the entire New World Order agenda.
Bilderberg is making great progress toward a world government, and only an educated, informed public can stop them in their tracks.
Alex, it's Chalabi, eh?
For the first time, all the pieces have been put together. The dots have been connected, and the picture is crystal clear. Earth's ruling elite believe they have discovered the fountain of youth. But before they can attain it, 80% of us must die. A psychopathic technocracy is establishing world government so there can be no escape from their plan.
The New World Order is the old world order. I mean, it's just the names have changed, the appearances have changed.
Most people have no idea. They're not after money. They have all the money they need. They're after power. That's their aphrodisiac.
I was pulled out of a plane in Munich. They interrogated me 4 hours. Some shots were fired.
Need you to move off the property.
Their great dream of exterminating 80% of humanity is at hand. Endgame. Blueprint for global enslavement. You have been warned.
Welcome, folks. It is Thursday, the 28th day of July, 2011, and this special live Infowars special report is going into its second hour this evening. And from time to time, I'll be doing these special reports at prisonplanet.tv, but starting September 1st, we'll have a 30-minute news program every evening that's going to be highly produced. This is really just a beta test in here for live special reports that we'll also be doing. And I'm glad on our maiden voyage here, as we work out some of the bugs and things, that we had the health ranger Mike Adams with us in the last hour. And now in the next 45 minutes or so, or as long as he wants to stay, he's been working hard all day. He was already on my radio show for an hour and a half today. We have Sheriff Richard Mack, and most folks, of course, know who he is, but he was the guy that shot down the Brady bill as unconstitutional, took it all the way to the Supreme Court and won. And of course, he's a best-selling author and a great fighter for liberty, what you'd call the proto-Tea Party. You know, the real folks that, were right about everything that's now happened in America, and who are true constitutionalists, not fake Republicans or Democrats. And Sheriff Richard Mack is here with us, and his important message is reaching out to the police, reaching out to military, and reminding them of their oath. Because, hey, if you don't follow the Bill of Rights and Constitution, you might as well be like the corrupt police in Guatemala or North Korea or China or what we've seen in Russia or Eastern Germany. The examples are replete. And before I get into Operation Fast and Furious and Court Site and all the things that are going on and try to sit here and shut up, because everything he's going to say is going to make 1,000 things explode in my mind, but that's why folks watch. I don't need a teleprompter. I need to be hit on the head with a hammer to shut up. Before we get there, I want to get to, well, first, thank you for being here, Sheriff.
Oh, okay, Alex. Thanks for having me.
And welcome to Texas.
Hey.
It's like the gathering here.
Been here 2 months, and already I'm an Alamo Texan.
Well, we're going to talk about what that means in a moment. But before we go there, I wanted to raise this issue in my little police state stack here. I saw an article today that says Chinese riot after killing a fruit vendor. This is the Financial Times of London. Mm-hmm. And this disabled 52-year-old Ding Quago died when the code enforcer police beat him to death in front of everyone for no reason. And in China, every day now, they have giant riots when the police act like Chinese communist thugs. Mm-hmm. The Chinese riot and attack police stations, and in many cases kill everybody inside now. They weren't doing this 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. They don't have big Tiananmen squares down in the square. They just go crazy. Then I saw a new video that I'm not even going to air here. It's too horrible. The Daily Mail reported out of California. Caught on tape. Police beat and taser gentle, mentally ill homeless man to death. And they've got video of it, and they reported he was very gentle, very nice, but schizophrenic. And there'd been they thought somebody messing with cars. Turned out it wasn't him. Yeah. But when they came over and tackled him, they tasered him 6 times and beat him to death. And if you look at the photo of him, it took him a couple days to die. I mean, he looked like he was run over by a Mack truck. No pun intended. And again, my job is not just to sit here and bash cops. They make mistakes. They got a tough job. But the difference is that why would Chinese riot and take over a whole city of 30,000 and take over the police station over seeing somebody beaten to death? And here in America, we lie down and take it and see it as almost pro-police,
Right.
that we see so many crazy examples of them beating people up that are videotaping them.
Right.
What's happening? What's the difference between a peace officer and a guardian of the republic and these enforcers? And what's your comment on this latest story?
Well, I think it's simply a result and an indication of the training that we receive in this country now at the police academies and within the police departments themselves and the sheriff's offices. It's a them against us mentality, and the police are trained. Safety tactics. You go home tonight. The most important thing after your 8-hour or 10-hour shift, you go home, and you make sure that you're on guard, that your gun belt is ready, the strap off your gun is undone, and you're ready to go. Make sure you're able to defend yourself, and it's just overdone, Alex. It's just way overdone. And just like the SWAT team mentality altogether, it's overdone. I mean, we actually have the Department of Education that calls in a SWAT team to go after a family and goes in and raids a family with a SWAT team in Stockton, California.
Outside of their jurisdiction.
Outside of their jurisdiction.
No warrant.
Yeah, and when they do that, my thing is, my message to everyone in this country is that there is a solution to this police state SWAT team mentality that's going on in our country. And it is, 1, return to the basic fundamentals of our Constitution. You cannot have, I read a book, and I can't remember who it was. It was on community policing, which is supposed to be an oxymoron because that's what we're doing anyway. But the problem with it is, he said, the problem with policing in America is we're being patrolled and policed by strangers. Now you take that to the next level. These guys aren't strangers anymore. They're police state officers. And that is the mentality that is going on in this country. And my warning is to every sheriff and chief of police and peace officer. You have to know the difference between a peace officer and an officer of the state. And when we return to those basic fundamental principles that sheriffs were established for in the first place, to be the peacekeeper, then we will return to freedom. And that the most important thing that your sheriff can do is to protect you from the tyrant. And he actually interposes himself on behalf of the people. And so we can stop this. For instance, the Stockton, California raid. The lady who was the suspect, who wasn't, what crime did she commit? She didn't pay back her student loan.
And we don't have debtor prisons in this country. That's a civil matter.
I know, it's a civil matter. I keep saying that to people. Why don't they listen? But
it's a power grab.
They go in, and she's not even there. So obviously they haven't done their homework. She hasn't been there for a long time. Hasn't even lived there. And so her husband gets raided. And he gets handcuffed and thrown out in the heat and sits in a patrol car for 6 hours. They kick in the door. They don't even offer to fix that. They tape it. They tape over where they kicked it in, and they said everything's fine. That guy should be suing for all sorts of
it's a message.
But
pay this money, even though we're in a depression. It was Thomas Jefferson said that when the government fears the people, there is liberty. When the people fear the government, there is tyranny.
No, that's what we have today. You have what you have today. You know, you don't even need to say tyranny. You know, but the thing of it is, if we're going to stop that Stockton, California raid, the sheriff should have gone to them right then, that day, and said, I didn't know you guys were coming in here, and if you ever come into my county and pull that crap again, you're going to go to jail. And I'll be the one doing it.
Well, there's a good thing, Sheriff Mack, that you're out there with your book educating the sheriffs about their proper role as, you know, the head constitutional officer in a county under state law and educating the public, because you're on one end trying to restore the republic. The establishment, as you know, and I want you to talk about this, all over the country is moving to get rid of sheriffs being elected. We're going to get to that. But also we see these power grabs. Just 10 years ago, not even 20, it was well known that feds had to get permission, the FBI, to come into a county or a city. But now they've built these law enforcement centers. The feds come in with money. They build the threat fusion centers. And the feds are the boss there with the police chief and the detectives. And they all go to lunch together. And now they're just auxiliary federal officers. In many cases, they're deputized. They've deputized sheriff's deputies under the ATF grant in the schools, asking what kind of guns do mommy and daddy have. I mean, this is a scientific takeover. So can you speak to the program to get rid of the sheriff as an elected position, to cut the people off from that and really complete our journey into corruption and despotism? Because as you know, as yourself has said, as Stuart Rhodes has said, Jack McClam, so many others, Sheriff Mack, that tyranny will come to your door in a uniform.
It will. And all of the horrible incidents that have happened in our country in the last 20, 30, 40 years, Ruby Ridge, Kent State massacres, Waco, and they go on and on. And we can even go back, in every one of my presentations.
The Waco sheriff said he wished he would have done his duty.
Exactly, yeah. You can even go back, I like to use the analogy of Rosa Parks. You see, Rosa Parks got arrested, an American citizen arrested because she didn't give her seat to a white man. And now she's been honored in the year 2000, she was honored by Congress. Do they know why she was honored? She broke the law. And she stood against stupid laws, and that's exactly what we should all be doing. Now, she went to jail that day from two people wearing a badge who swore an oath in God's name to uphold and defend the Constitution. Well, I want every sheriff, and that's what I ask in this book, The County Sheriff, America's Last Hope. I ask every sheriff, will you stand against that kind of abuse? You see, there was no heroes at Ruby Ridge. There was no heroes at Waco. There were no heroes at Kent State. There were no heroes at the Rosa Parks bus problem. She was hauled off to jail. Ask every sheriff in this country, ask every peace officer in this country, if you were called back into time, or through time, to that bus on December 1st, 1955, and you as a peace officer, or you as a sheriff or a deputy sheriff, were called to take care of that incident, knowing what we know now about freedom and fairness and equality, and our constitutional republic, if you were to get on that bus, what would you do? Are you going to arrest her? I've had actually a few cops tell me they would, because all the laws have to be enforced. That's the mentality I'm fighting. That's the thing my books are fighting, and that's the thing I've stood against for since I've been in law enforcement.
Well, I mean,
20 years.
Exactly. I mean, as the founders stated, and as the Constitution states, and as the juries and grand juries are set up, juries and grand juries aren't supposed to be kept creatures of the prosecutor or
even creatures of the judge.
And creatures of the judge. They're supposed to judge the law as well as the facts. That's another check and balance of the people. If the corrupt system's doing something wrong, or they don't think the law is right, that is the check. It's not just the legislative, the executive, and the judicial. And the sheriff is another elected person who's the guardian.
And state sovereignty is the other branch. In fact, the Supreme Court decision, now this is the Supreme Court decision. This is how small it is. You have a pocket constitution that you can keep this with. Everybody carries a pocket constitution. The other most valuable tool you should have the victory for state sovereignty. This proves what you're saying, that there's the legislative branch, there's the executive branch, and there's the judicial branch. And then Scalia actually says that state sovereignty is the other check and balance that should be applied and should be used in this country. And that's why it's so important that you put the sheriff with the principle of state sovereignty, and he will then know and understand his duty, his responsibility to stand against the tyranny of the federal government.
Well, I want to go back to these military men and
let's go back to your other question.
Because we heard a police officer. Well, sure, go ahead and finish
what has happened to the sheriffs?
Yes.
What is the move nationwide? Well, first, two of the mistakes that the most recent states coming into the Union made was Hawaii and Alaska. They did not establish sheriffs in those two states. There's none. There's no sheriffs. Then, another huge mistake about 10 years ago, the state of Connecticut actually voted away all the sheriffs. And I think there was only about 9 sheriffs in the state of Connecticut. They voted them out, just got rid of them. Why would you want to do that? Why would the state? And do you know who went out there and campaigned and lobbied and testified before the Connecticut legislature to stop that idiocy? Our own Joe Arpaio, Sheriff Arpaio from Phoenix. He went out there to tell them the biggest mistake you can make is get rid of your sheriff. The second mistake you can make is to appoint your sheriff. The sheriff should remain accountable to the voters.
Well, that's what's crazy is we have cities that are just incorporated under state law. The county is above it in the chain in state government.
It stays out of the corporation.
Well, that's ass backwards, is my point.
Exactly.
Is to, and I hate to use that term, but that's what it is.
It is.
To have the feds coming in and lobbying to have the sheriff gotten rid of. I mean, that is a direct attack at the heart of the cellular level of the state, the county. But going back to the big issue of what you raised about Rosa Parks, I think that's one of the strongest points I've ever heard you make, and that you've talked to police that would arrest her today if ordered to do so. That goes back to the Nuremberg trials, where the Nazis came up and said, we were ordered to do this.
We were just following orders.
And that's how it works. First, they ask you to follow orders that are a little unconstitutional. Because they had a similar constitution in the Weimar Republic.
Right.
In fact, in some cases, they even was built off ours. It was even more expansive in some areas with rights. Yeah. But over time, they eroded it, and pretty soon, the sky was the limit. And those guys were hung. And so saying, I just followed orders, hey, I'm just doing my job. Well, hey, buddy, you swear an oath to protect and defend the Constitution from enemies.
Exactly my point.
And I don't know if you've seen my film Road to Tyranny, but it has a squad car video in Virginia of a naval veteran, no criminal record, pulled over. They find a pocket Constitution in the trunk at a checkpoint. They arrest her, and the two state police officers start getting scared. And it's just a mainline Constitution, and they act like they found a 100-foot rattlesnake, and they go, my God, I can't believe we got one of them. These guys swear an oath to this, but because they found one of my videos, but the pocket Constitution is what really scared them, and they found a Patriot Games VHS tape, because this was back in 2000, Abby Newman, they found a Patriot Games VHS tape.
No, I was involved with Abby Newman. I went out to testify at her trial. But
it also scared him, the word patriot, that I'm trying to think of his name, Harrison Ford. Yeah. That's even evil now.
Right.
I mean, the word patriot scared him. What was wrong with those state police officers?
Again, training. They've been trained. During the radio show today, we were talking about posse comitatus, and we talked to Josh, the officer in the Army, I think it was.
He said, we're going to use foreign troops in America.
Yeah, he was a Marine. And the mentality of that really scared me, and you're talking about it here again. It's being exemplified by the brainwashing that law enforcement have had throughout the past 30 or 40 years. Now, when I first started as a rookie, we had training about these so-called right-wing groups. Well, I was trained. I went to police training that said posse comitatus. Didn't say anything about it being a law passed back in 1890. That didn't allow the military to be used for domestic purposes. I wasn't trained to that. I was told that posse comitatus was a group of right-wing radicals that were dangerous, armed to the hilt, that would kill cops if you tried to stop them for a traffic citation.
And that's why when people say, why is the Army at a checkpoint, posse comitatus, they flip out.
Yeah. And as soon as you use the term posse comitatus, and these cops are going to think, what is the matter with you? And then you explain to them that is a federal law that prohibits the Marines or any other branch of the Army or military being used in domestic
And now we
regions.
see that was my next issue, and I could see the MIAC Homeland Security reports that good peace officers, federal and state, sent me, that the training has nothing to do with Al-Qaeda. It is all Ron Paul supporters, gun owners, people that have films about the Constitution, people that want to get rid of the private Federal Reserve, which is the foreign banking cartel that runs the country, and that's wrecking the nation, that stole $27 trillion, we now learn, and won't tell Congress where the money went. And so now I knew they were going to mainline that, and now they are. Oh, the white terrorists, they're going to get you. There's going to be new OKCs, and you research those, you find out those are false flag events. And now Jackson Lee says, let's have a hearing on right-wing extremist ideologues. And so
the Congresswoman.
Yes.
Yeah. She's wanting to drag all of that into a congressional hearing. Why? I thought she stood for civil rights. I thought we already broke away from this crap that government has to watch.
Well, that's what it is. When libertarians and constitutionalists and conservatives want the Constitution, they just say, well, you don't want government health care, you're racist. They throw that in so that liberals don't wake up and come defend the Republic as well.
Right. And I still maintain that, and I really thought the time you spent with Mike Adams was extremely valuable, and some of the things there that he talked about, I've been involved with. For instance, going and drinking milk. I hate milk. I'm not kidding you. I hate milk. But I went all the way to Madison, Wisconsin from Arizona to drink raw milk with a couple of Amish farmers at the state capitol in Madison, Wisconsin.
That's extreme.
It is extreme, yeah.
That's almost as bad as that lady in Oak Park, Michigan with the garden. And the 93 days in jail.
Who the hell does she think she is? And
well, these people are extremists.
Oh, I know.
But thank goodness Jackson Lee, the congresswoman,
wants to put us all in a congressional hearing.
Well, she cares. I mean,
yeah, well, of course she cares. And so I did. And we challenged the police because they had already raided both of these guys, destroyed their farms, destroyed hundreds of thousands of worth of food, real good food. And they're just providing this product to people who want it, who don't believe in pasteurized milk. And they don't want their cheese burned and ruined and all the enzymes and vitamins destroyed before they feed it to their family. And so they go to Vernon Hershberger and Max Kane. These were the two guys I drank with. And you can go to my website and you'll see that picture with me drinking this, folks, on the state capitol.
I want a disclaimer right now. I'm an extremist, but not as evil as this guy. He actually drank milk with Amish. Hey, we need...
That's good, Alex.
Now, your blood wasn't more than 1 part per million. I mean, what's the milk blood level allowable before you go to jail?
I think it's 0.08.
Yeah. So let me tell you, you joke about it. It's not funny.
It's not.
That's
funny.
A hardcore drug.
These two guys though are the salty earth people, and Vernon Hershberger and his 8 or 9 kids and his beautiful wife.
Oh, dangerous.
You know, they were there with us. All of his kids were there on the state capitol. And after we drank that illegal milk, is this so crazy?
Listen, they used to sell unpasteurized milk out here at the farmer's market, but they had secret police out there. And here's the deal. It's not illegal to, even up until the 50s and early 60s, that was the milkman, and dairies were decentralized because it had to be fresh. It lasted for a week. It was live. The doctor said if you're sick, drink raw milk.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, pasteurization, they boil it. That's what causes turns it into a bad cholesterol. I've talked to the doctors and others. But because they wanted to be able to sell rotten milk in overworked cows that had blood and pus in their udders, and because with raw milk, if you get anything contaminated, you got to dump it out. So this is what we were brought up on. But they slowly brought in the pasteurized and then got laws passed to shut it down. So it's another example. And now, you can't have a garden. Right. Now you can't have, now the government's got laws. You can't have a label of something, they don't have to tell you if it isn't organic.
Right.
This is incredible.
But that's my entire point. And listening to Mike Adams and then listening to Josh on the phone with us today on the radio show, are we totally insane? I mean, have we lost every bit of direction that we were supposed to take in this country? This is America. And we're going after, first of all, the federal government has shut off the water in the Napa Valley, reinforcing what Mike said about destroying the food supply in this country. They did it to Klamath Falls back in 2001. That was under the Bush administration. Now the Obama administration has done it.
They're setting the precedent to do whatever they want.
Exactly. And ultimately, that's what Obamacare tells every American citizen. And I'm here to tell you that there's a way to stop it. And our lawsuit actually says how we can stop Obamacare. The victory for state sovereignty. And this is the synopsis of my Supreme Court victory. You can see what this did for America, what this did for freedom, what it did for state sovereignty, and how you can implement this in your own neighborhood. Let me read one quote. This is Justice Scalia, the United States Supreme Court, in June 27, 1997, and it says...
Oh, wait, luckily this is not an FCC show.
No,
so
thank goodness.
This is internet only, so we're allowed to have profanity here on air. First off, because, again, the police freak out when they see a Constitution. A Supreme Court justice in a modern age quoting it.
This is just a Supreme Court. This is the decision.
Are you sure we can do this on air?
The Supreme Court.
This is almost as bad as raw milk.
Yeah, you're right. It is. It is. And let's not leave the raw milk thing behind either, because those guys are great. We have held, this is the United States Supreme Court talking to the American people and to the White House and to Congress. We have held, however, that state legislatures are not subject to federal direction. Well, don't you wish your state legislature knew this? This was the United States Supreme Court.
Why do we even have a states if they're not?
Exactly.
But, I mean, before 1913, the legislatures elected the federal senator.
Yeah.
That shows you the states are the boss. They're not co-equal. Right. First they teach you the states aren't the boss, then they're co-equal, and now there's no reason to even have states, we're told. And now Obama says no reason to have a Congress for EPA rules, wars.
We are not Arizona. Arizona has no right to call itself Arizona. It is federal enclave number 47. Arizona was the 47th state. Arizona is 85% owned and controlled and managed by the federal government. And I know the Arizonans are really backward and they're a bunch of rednecks, but I guarantee you two things. I know Arizona can run their own dadgum Grand Canyon, and they can certainly run their own education without the federal government.
Well, that's the issue. The feds are now buying up land in states that are mainly privately owned, like Texas, with our tax money. And instead of all those western lands were supposed to be divided up against with the people. Continuing, since you mentioned health care, and then we'll get back into that. Okay. London Independent, cataracts, hips, knees, and tonsils. National Health Service begins rationing operations. Here, Bill Gates has come out and said these are death panels, that his foundation helped get it in there, and that the feds will decide what procedures doctors can give you. And he said, don't give granny treatment, we'll hire 10 teachers. So playing us off against each other. Once they socialize everything, then, oh, well, we don't agree with your diet, you've got to pay more, or you don't get treatment. But I've watched the House of Lords, even when Tony Blair was there, before Gordon Brown and Cameron, and he would admit they have, in one case, a form of brain cancer, almost 100% operable if it's done within a month. And he admitted, yes, we make you wait 18 months. It's a death sentence. It's eugenics. But here's the London Independent. Hip replacements, cataract surgery, and tonsil removal are among operations now being rationed in a bid to save the NHS money. This is how it always works with socialism.
Well, the socialist structure does have that. I mean, there's no question about that, and that's why they want to socialize and nationalize health care in America.
And now you're beholden not just for your food stamps or for your Social Security, for your health care.
But for your tonsillectomy.
And if you don't go deeper into debt to the international bankers, oh, we're going to hold off on your health care as well.
And everything that I've ever heard you talk about at Santa Cruz, California, when we were there with Joe Bannister, a great meeting, jam-packed with people from all over California. Everything I've heard you say on your shows and of the tapes that I've seen, you did one that I was involved with, like I said, back when Abby Newman thing and the police state video that you did pursuant to that and a lot of other things going on in America. There is nothing, again, this little tool, 50-page book, there is nothing that the UN or the New World Order or the federal government and all of its corruption that are trying to shove down our otherwise healthy throats that we cannot stop at the county level, that we cannot stop with a true constitutional sheriff who knows and understands his duty to protect his people.
We've run up the white flag. We're not occupying the land. We're just saying all the crooks in the county, let them run it. But then when good people do try to actually root out the corruption, a court side happens, but that's fine. We've got to draw the tyrants out and let people see their corruption so that it's evident.
Yeah, there's people still telling me today. I even have a sheriff out in Washington. I went there. I've been to Wisconsin and Washington State, not D.C., Washington State, to help a family, again, rated by the FDA, to have them stop dealing that horrible raw cheese and raw milk. And this farm, rather a very small one actually, they went and destroyed about $300,000 worth of product. Wouldn't let the poor eat it. They were sending these products to the most plush restaurants all over the country.
No, I know.
Yeah. People loved it.
Raw cheese at Whole Foods is 3 times more.
Yeah, and they love it.
By the way, it's real cheese.
Yeah, correct.
That pasteurized stuff isn't even cheese.
Correct. And so the sheriff there, I went and met with him, and I'm with the victims of this FDA raid. And I said, you know what, Sheriff, if you'd read this, if you take the time to read my case and to read the book, I think you'll find that you actually do have the responsibility to protect these people from those types of raids. What are they doing? Exercising what the Declaration of Independence says, their pursuit of happiness. They are doing this with their family. They have 6 adopted kids, and they're all running this farm together, working together as a family, wonderful kids.
Working together as Al-Qaeda.
Yeah. And they just want to make a living. And they're doing it. And who shuts them down? Who destroys their food? But our own federal government. Now, this case says over and over, and this book documents it and puts it all into perspective.
And what did the sheriff say?
And he said, you think government's tyrannical. I don't. He was a Josh. Remember our Josh that we talked to this morning? He was another Josh, the Marine that we talked to this morning.
Yeah. They let us eat salmon that's part insect. They let us eat crops that are killing honeybees.
Yeah.
You know, that have been proven to be giving us cancer. I mean, that's mainline news. GMO crops causing infertility, cancer, and won't let us have it labeled.
Yeah.
But then real cheese that you taste it. If it's sour, it's not good.
Right.
It's much. They pasteurize it so they can feed you rotten crap.
Correct.
They radiate food so they can feed you rotten crud. They legalize all the poison. And then obviously if a cheese company ever had bad cheese, or if you ever shipped bad lobsters one time, you'd be out of business.
You're out.
The free market does that. Instead, big agribusiness, I've seen cases where Tyson Chicken, it was even the Associated Press, had thousands of violations at one plant. Their smaller competitor had one little violation and was shut down. And it's big agri writing all this. And so, and so that sheriff needs to be thrown out.
Well, he does. And so at the end of our meeting, you know, I gave him my books, you know, and he was tossing them aside and all this. And I said, if you would just take a few minutes to look at that, you'll see that the U.S. Supreme Court agrees with me what I've put out here. 7 sheriffs in this country filed this lawsuit with me. I was the first to file in 1994. Sheriff Prince was second. He and I end up at the Supreme Court together because he and I were in the same
And
circuit.
you won. This is the law. This is America.
We won.
And he disrespects you, somebody who went to the Supreme Court with a landmark decision. You have the ruling, and he says, I choose to say it's not tyrannical. You've been proven right in the courts and in common sense, and he just says, nah. It's just like that.
However,
it's just like Josh today.
Right.
When we said, yeah, there's foreign troops trying to come into America. And he said, yeah, I'm for the military being on the streets. And I said, but the law, but the founding fathers were, and see.
And did he care about posse comitatus?
No.
Not one iota. Not one.
You were going to say something about the case.
Yeah, okay. Well, the sheriff, the bottom line with that, I said, Sheriff, let me do this. Why don't you call the U.S. Attorney's Office that allowed this raid to go on in these good people's home and at their farm? And why don't you call them and ask them what it was for and tell them not to do it again unless you're involved. Or tell them even go one step further. Just tell them you want this family left alone. And I said, do you want me to tell you right now what will happen? They'll leave this family alone. All you have to do is call them and talk to them about it and tell them you wish that this family, that these people will be left alone. And I said, I'll bet you they will. He did it. He called them, and it happened.
So he was kind of afraid and said, oh, you think they're tyrannical, but he finally exercised his authority.
Just to kind of get rid of us.
Grand juries are kept now. Juries are kept. Sheriffs are kept. State legislatures are kept. It's about waking up out of the trance and saying, why do we have states? Why do we have sheriffs?
Yeah. Why do we have counties? You know, if we're just puppets, and this case, actually, Scalia, who wrote this decision, actually uses that terminology.
Read some of it.
All right. Scalia goes, this guy's pretty funny. States are not puppets of a ventriloquist Congress. You see, we're not their puppets. We're not their pawns. We're not their little redcoats. They do not own us. They cannot tell us what to do. And what this case says, Alex, and that's why I'm really glad to be on your program, because so many people can get this, because they understand and want to understand the Constitution, is that he's actually telling us in this case that the federal government is not our boss.
But if we roll over to tyranny,
then
we're conquered.
Yeah, we are. If we let them enslave us, then they're the boss.
So at the end of the day, look in the mirror, and they know you're waking up now. They know you're waking up now, so that's why they're saying, oh, these people that like Ron Paul and the Constitution, they're terrorists, they want to kill you, police, and then they even go out and provocateur things to make that true, because we're the real Americans. I mean, look, if you don't like America, then say you want global world government and you want tyranny, but don't say we're the extremist when we're following what made the country great. Continue.
One other one.
Start over with that. Give us the whole body of that.
All right. Well, first, Scalia really pushes this deal about the states are sovereign. And he said, now when the states form the federal government, and that's a key component there, the states form the federal government. So does that make the federal government our boss, or are we their boss?
My parents made me show, I guess when I'm born, I'm the feds, and all
of a sudden you're in charge.
I'm 1 year old, and I go, now I'm the boss.
Yeah, exactly, which is absurd.
It's kind of like an out-of-control teenager, actually.
Yeah. And so Scalia said, though, even though we delegated some powers to the new federal government, the states retained a residuary and inviolable sovereignty. So if the states are really and truly inviolably sovereign, why don't we control our own resources, our own education?
Why don't we get rid of the 17th Amendment and bring the senators back to the states?
That's exactly correct. That's another key component of all of this. And then he goes on to say, the federal government we held may not compel the states to enact or administer a federal regulatory program. You got to remember, this is June 27, 1997. Does that sound like he's talking about Obamacare?
And carbon tax?
Where do you think Obamacare and all of this is going to be enforced? In Washington, D.C.? No. It's going to be in the state. It's going to be in Austin. It's going to be in the counties. It'll be in every county, all 254 counties.
Oh, they mandate that we carry it out.
Exactly. They will. And so where can we stop it? County by county, state by state. This says that Obamacare cannot be forced upon the states. We do not have to participate. They are not our boss. So this decision says your sheriff does not have to take orders from the federal government. Let's be specific. The President of the United States cannot tell your county or your sheriff or your state what to do. Your governor, state reps, nobody. The United States Congress cannot tell your sheriff or your state what to do. If Congress and the President cannot tell your sheriff what to do or your state, then how did the EPA get that authority? How did the FDA get that authority?
Well,
how
let
did
me
the
stop
IRS
you.
get it?
How did, I have an example here today in my stack where he's a boxer, he's in great shape, and he's got a prosthesis, he's only got one hand. And he went to get a TSA job, and they just said openly, no, you're crippled.
You can't grope people with that hand.
Well, and he went on and said, but American with civil disabilities,
yeah, right.
Americans with Disabilities Act, and they said, we're not under that. There's no law. They say they don't need to radiation test their scanners. Mm-hmm. When under federal law, you have to, and state law. They just say, we don't care. Right. FBI can't stick their hands on your pants or in your pants without a warrant. They just do it. It's the same thing with all this. It's just an out-of-control, tyrannical power grab where they say, Americans with Disabilities Act, radiation laws, Fourth Amendment, 10th Amendment states' rights,
Second Amendment,
a federal judge just ruled, hey, we want TSA at school proms groping people. No, I'm not kidding.
Can't they wait till afterwards, like all the other boys?
Exactly. But I mean, that's one. I mean, it's just a mad power grab.
It is. It is, and I do poke fun at it because that's really the only way I can handle it. Because this stuff would drive you crazy if you let it. Because it's so out of control and it's so bass backwards, as you say. It is so 100% diametrically opposed to the Founding Fathers' vision that makes it scary. And it is scary. And so anyway, I've dedicated my life to making sure that there are constitutional sheriffs in this country who will stand against the tyranny of the federal government. It is the greatest protection, and it is the greatest solution. And I said, everything that you've said, that you have dedicated your life to, all of that can be stopped, sheriff by sheriff, county by county,
if the
state
people
by state.
Will reanimate the republic with their energies, with the truth.
Let me tell you where that has happened. Grant County, Oregon, Sheriff Glenn Palmer. I have on my website, sheriffmack.com, I have an article right at the top about him. He invited me out there 10 years ago to teach my Constitution class to all his department. Now, 3 months ago, 2.5 months ago, he invited me back. And I've been in touch with him ever since. I know what he's been doing.
And let me guess, he's more popular now than ever.
More popular now than ever. And let me tell you why you reminded me of this and what you just said. Because the people got working behind their sheriff and working with their sheriff to stop the tyrants. Let me tell you what this other county, before I tell you what Sheriff Palmer did. This county voted in voter referendum, got petitions and put it on the ballot and voted to make Grant County a UN-free zone.
Beautiful.
Isn't that wonderful? And so these are people who know and understand freedom. Then, now they have a county sheriff, a constitutional sheriff, whose oath of office means something to him. He takes it seriously. And he's told the United States Forest Service, you better back off and leave my people alone. They're citing people for going out and collecting and clearing dead wood. These are people who...
So when there's a lightning strike, everything burns down.
Exactly.
We don't clear it.
The Forest Service has created a lot more forest fires than
oh, that's admitted
in history. Yes, then they know that. Well, the numbers are there. They can't lie. And so Sheriff Palmer got sick and tired of the Forest Service citing his people, arresting his people, sending them to federal court 6 hours away, 7 hours away in Portland. And he said, that's not going to happen anymore. You're not going to treat people like that. You're not going to shut off roads anymore, act like you own everything here, because you don't. And he wrote him a letter and said, now my intergovernmental agreement with you will not be renewed. I'm not going to sign it. And you guys are being put on notice. Now he's issued another letter to him that he's actually going to arrest them if they fail to comply with what he's doing. Now, another key component of this, the people got behind this good sheriff. And when I went there to speak at the rally, all the people showed up. There's like 600 people at the high school gym. And there's a full-page ad in the local newspaper, an entire full page. And it has 600 names on it of local citizens who support their sheriff, keeping his oath, supporting the Constitution, and defending freedom.
And even if the feds then try to persecute them, that persecution will let them really come together. And from what I've heard, this is spreading now.
It is.
A lot of other sheriffs aren't going all the way, but these cultures of liberty are spreading.
It's starting.
And the fires are being set. The brush fires in the minds of men and women. The great animating contest of liberty is now accelerating. That is so exciting, Sheriff Mack. We've got about 10 minutes left here, and I know you've had a long day. We'll let you get out of here.
I still have to get to another interview with Dr. Stan Monteith.
My goodness, what time is that?
11.
You are working hard.
So, yeah, I got to be home in time to do that. But I've got plenty. It looks like we got plenty of time, and my wife's waiting out for me. And I call her the pretty little.
You can be back to Fredericksburg in about an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah, I'll be back plenty of time. So, but I just wanted to make sure people could get these tools. They're so extremely valuable. They're on my website. Make sure that you have a sheriff that knows and understands this book, The County Sheriff, America's Last Hope. Talk to him about it. He's probably already received the book because a lot of good people have made sure that every sheriff in the country got it. But since we sent 3,100 of these out to all the sheriffs, we have new sheriffs now. Not all of them, but there's about...
they need to be knee-deep in those.
But they do.
Pocket constitutions, the ruling, they need to be knee-deep.
Now, you notice on the ruling, this is the state flag, which answers the question you said, why do we have states? This is the autonomy that is expressed by each state. They have their own flags. So let's use them. And this is an extremely valuable tool. And let me tell you my favorite quote from this entire decision. It actually brings in what's the motto of the Obama administration and the Eric Holder Justice Department?
Their motto is ship guns into Mexico and frame the Second Amendment?
No, the other one. Never let a good crisis go to waste.
Yes.
Okay? Well, Scalia talks about that in here, and he says this, but the Constitution protects us from our own best intentions. Do you know what happens if not every, if we get maybe 20 or 30% of sheriffs and local officials to live by that one line, one sentence, but the Constitution protects us from our own best intentions. It divides power among sovereigns. All the people are sovereigns, and the states sovereign, so that we may resist the temptation to concentrate power in one location as an expedient solution to the crisis of the day.
And that's how it's always sold, and they sell it with a good packaging. But the people selling this new world order...
And of course, they would never create that crisis either. They would never fabricate that crisis, just like Obama did with the health care debate. Oh, everybody's dying, and if we don't get this to them right now, the people are going to continue to die. And oh, we've got to do this bailout right now, or our economy.
Or there's guns in Mexico.
Oh,
we got to restrict the Second Amendment. By the way, I shipped them down there.
Yeah, and he has his BATF shipping them down there. And that's how ridiculous and crazy this has gotten. And so, folks, again, this extremely valuable tool, if you want to see how we avoid the crisis of the day, Scalia says the way to avoid the crisis of the day from the federal government and to stop their tyranny and their, he calls it incursions, is at the state and county level.
In closing, the banksters know that the remedy is through the states. As that checkmate on out-of-control federal behavior.
It's the fourth branch.
That's why they sold Obama as the second coming of Abraham Lincoln. And now he's saying, not just with the states, but with Congress, that he may raise the debt ceiling even if they don't.
Yeah.
That he'll launch wars,
Right.
that he'll put in carbon taxes. And my final question for you, and if you've got any other final thoughts, and then I've got some final thoughts at the end here for folks watching on prisonplanet.tv. In the final equation, we know they're getting rid of posse comitatus. They're training the police. And I saw cases in Tennessee where, remember 2 years ago, it's in my film Police State for the Rise of FEMA, so important that be gotten out to everybody. Because a lot of police are compartmentalized. They see that film. They go, oh, that's how this all interconnects.
Right.
You know, they know the info's true, but they've never really put the pieces together. This total federalization ahead of our staged bankruptcy and financial bondage to the globalist. But all over the country, there was a case 2 years ago, and I had a state rep on, and the governor put a statement out in Tennessee. They had upwards of 20 federal agencies, Army, National Guard, MPs, BATF, FBI, TSA, federal marshals, running checkpoints, shutting down highways, searching people in 4 states. But the Tennessee governor said, they called it an exercise, but it was real. They were shutting down highways. The governor said, you can't do that. You don't have authorization. And they just said, hey, Homeland Security, National Security, we'll do it whatever we want. There's got to be a confrontation with this. What would you have done if you were one of the Tennessee sheriffs 2 years ago and there were 20 federal agencies running blockades on roads in open violation of the Bill of Rights, Constitution, but every other canon of a free society? And everybody knows a hallmark of tyranny is military running checkpoints. I mean, that's martial law. What would you have done?
Well, first of all, I will hope that I would have already had them on notice before this all started, that they know they have to check with the sheriff before they come in and do that crap. Then if they don't, then you go there and you stop it. And you do stop it. And
what do they say? We have bigger guns. I guess you go call out the posse?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and hopefully you do it peacefully. And this can be done peacefully. And Chris Matthews tried to pin it on me that no, this is all going to be violent. And Time Magazine lied about me.
Oh, in the Rise of the Right, they implied me and Ron Paul are calling for violence.
Right, exactly. And I've never heard you call for that, and no one has ever heard me call for violence. There is a way to do this peacefully. The thing of it is, if the sheriff does interject himself in this situation, in this problem, if he does interpose himself on behalf of the people, he can call in the other sheriffs from the rest of the state. He can call in the posse. He's the only other person besides the governor that has the authority and power to call out the posse, the militia.
And they're afraid of this confrontation.
Of course they are.
Because we're in the right, and it's going to checkmate. I mean, folks, the TSA, no one is allowed to stick their hands down your pants without a warrant. No one's allowed to put you in microwave ovens, period. This is a joke. Major universities worldwide, including the U.S., are now listing us as one of the worst police states. We've still got our free speech to a certain extent.
Right.
They're trying to start to shut that down with the internet kill switch. Tyranny's coming in like a flood. We have to animate the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. We're seeing all these articles in Time and Newsweek. Constitution's bad. It caused the problems.
Right.
Get rid of it. This will solve the problems. We've gotten into these problems as soon as we stopped following the Bill of Rights, Constitution, Declaration of Independence. Sheriff Richard Mack, thank you so much for spending time with us. Any closing comments?
Well, Alex, I'd say just the one thing you reminded me of there, we're not in trouble in this country because we follow the Constitution too strictly. Far from it. We've got to get back to that, and there's a way to do it. Sheriff by sheriff, county by county. Go to sheriffmack.com, and you can see all of this and see what I've been doing. And Alex, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate all your people here staying up late with us tonight, and thanks for having me and my wife here today.
The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have miles to go before I sleep. And what dedication. Going to drive back out to Fredericksburg, an hour and a half away, to another hour of radio on RadioLiberty.com with the great Dr. Stan Monteith.
That's right.
Old doctor on a cane doing 5 hours, 6 hours of radio a day.
Yeah.
And so dedicated. We flew out there to interview him for a film. We actually have to go back out.
Well, he was at your meeting in Santa Cruz.
But he had the flu. We flew out there. We have to go back out and do it again because he had the flu like a year ago for this eugenics film. and he would go in the bathroom, lay on the couch, and then force himself up. He could barely talk. And we're like, no, we'll fly back to Texas. Don't worry about it. And he literally did that to get the word out. And it's that type of dedication and that spark and that fire of liberty. That's why we're going to win. Folks, I want to thank you for tuning in tonight. I want to thank you for supporting PrisonPlanet.tv. This is just our roundtable special report format. Starting September 1st, we're going to have a 30-minute news program at 7 p.m. Central every evening. We've upped the crew. We've upped the IT people. We're kind of working out some of the bugs tonight. I want to thank the crew for staying late. And a lot of them have been here for 16 hours today. They were here 16 hours yesterday. I'll be back tomorrow, 11 a.m. live on the radio/TV show. But this PrisonPlanet.tv and the new TV site we're going to be starting after that is really the final phases. I already have several cable networks and people that have wanted us to develop a show, but they wanted me to move to New York or move to L.A. to do these shows under their rules. I'm doing this here as a viral program that will get the truth out to everybody, and we couldn't do it without your support. So thank you for being PrisonPlanet.tv members, and if you'd like to really support us so we can continue what we're doing, buy a couple more memberships at PrisonPlanet.tv, give it to your friends and family, or spread the word about PrisonPlanet.tv. You can download these shows, burn them to disk, pass them out to people. We even let people with their PrisonPlanet.tv passcode share it with up to 5, 6 different people with that same passcode can be simultaneously logged in. As long as we can pay for the bandwidth and the crew and all this equipment, we can continue. But if we could double the amount of members at PrisonPlanet.tv, and I believe that's going to happen with the nightly TV show, we can really finance the reporters and the crew and fly people in and really start to expand our news organization and find other people that can work here as reporters. So hopefully I get to a position only working 9, 10, 12 hours a day. But we've got big plans here, and we've been able to do it all because of you. We reach more than 2 million people a day on the radio, more than 5 million a week. We reach more than 5 million a week with Infowars.com, PrisonPlanet.com, more than 300 million views in the last 2.5 years on YouTube alone. We are having a huge effect, and the tyrants aren't going to be able to get away with what they're doing if we stand up. And this is a tip of the spear, so thank you for your support of PrisonPlanet.tv and Infowars.com. And whatever you do, go to SheriffMack.com and get the County Sheriff America's Last Hope and the Victory for State Sovereignty Supreme Court decision, because the remedies are there. That's why the system attacks the founders. That's why they attack the Declaration of Independence, Constitution. Lawyers, constitutionalists in other countries, philosophers, statesmen, they have looked at our system and said this was pure genius. It produced the most wealth, the most freedom. If we don't have this, then we're just more real estate and more dirt. And again, I'm Alex Jones signing off from Infowars Special Report. We'll talk to you coming up in the next few hours. See you back at 11 a.m. Central. Thank you, Sheriff.
You bet. Thanks for having me.